resources. I think that, you know, access, technology, digital divide, equity, these are all such important topics for us right now, and especially as our community of practice. And when we think about wanting to ensure that our students have equitable access to learning and resources, this is where privacy, which we've known from the beginning, is such a big deal. We had been talking about this even with some of our teaching artist friends last week, when we were talking about what would it look like to create a live event or to produce something coming from you straight to the students and families. There needs to be some layers of protection, and that's what we know that DCPS needs to look at. So I'm sure, Mary, in your update with the group today, if you could share some of that, because we're certainly talking a lot about technology. I was just on the phone with our two co-presidents of the collaborative. We were talking about what it means to be a collaborative right now and how to work collaboratively in this space, knowing that even in best case scenario, when we're all able to be, well, let's just say we're all able to have our doors open again, fully operational may mean something entirely different in our new paradigm here, but it's going to be a hybrid, more of a hybrid of digital and direct experiential learning. And we all have to be thinking that way. And we know that that's certainly what the collaborative is thinking about. And I'm sure at your respective organizations you are as well. So, so good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope everyone's doing as good as you can. And I hope you got some moments this weekend. I know that we're getting hit by so much right now, and it's impossible for us not to think about it. My husband and I decided, we were fortunate enough, we have a car, we decided to go for a ride. We decided to go for a ride somewhere where no one would be, and it was beautiful, and it was so nice, but like every other thought that came out of each of our mouths was something to do with Corona. And we had to like stop each other. It's so consuming, isn't it? It's really hard. And I know it's hard to get away from it, right? So, and then we think about, okay, our kiddos are now in their second week of distance learning. And what does that mean? And what are we hearing? How do we measure our impact now? It's such an unusual time for that. So the collaborative had a conversation. We have our morning Zoom chat as a team at 9 a.m. And we were talking about assessment. And first of all, assessment of our new product, which for all of you that are on that have contributed and who plan to contribute, thank you and yay. It's doing incredibly well in terms of what we believe is reaching audience. But how do we show impact to direct student learning through this distance learning database of all of the great resources of our cultural institutions and organizations here in the district is something we're thinking a lot about. So we had our assessment guru, Dr. Anthony Satari, on the phone with us earlier this morning, and Trés walked us through what Google Analytics looks like, and we can talk about that in a little bit. I'd like to carve some time out of our conversation to talk about that maybe toward the end. But if everyone, I see everyone starting to do that, if everyone can just introduce yourselves on the chat so we can have it recorded. I know we have our two special guests on the line and just want to hear some updates from them. So David, if you'd like to start, David Markey's on. And I just want to say before David starts, I did have a chance, I don't know if any of you listened in to the commissioner's call last week, but I have to say, it's a really challenging time, and I have a lot of respect for the commission. They are doing their best to figure out how to navigate what their new norm is in service to the community and keep as much operations going. David has panels happening this week, which is incredible, thinking about future funds so that when we look into next fiscal year, the commission is not set back and has some things in place. So thank you so much, David, for holding down this crazy ship. And also, I appreciate the commissioners for having a conversation around, is it even, you know, any possibility of trying to come up with emergency dollars for us. Having listened to this conversation, I have so much more appreciation for what the commissioners are faced with and the staff are faced with in figuring this out, because it's really not their decision. it's really based on the government and what's happened to our tax dollars. So David, I'm giving it all away, but I just wanted to preface that it was really an informative conversation. Totally understand. I think we all would benefit from listening into these and be as supportive as possible. And how we can support you is so important as you're supporting us. So again, thank you for all you're doing. And if you want to just let everyone know what's going on this week for the commission. Oops. David. Oh, he's on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay. Yes, we're trying to be flexible and to pivot and respond to what is happening in the moment. But at the same time, we want to, I think I mentioned last week, we want to have a sense of forward momentum. And so, yes, as Lissa shared, we have our general operating support program, which this year dispersed about $15 million to approximately 130 organizations. So it's a pretty significant program, pretty significant chunk of change. And so we have 3 panels this week and then 3 panels next week. They are virtual panels, so we are navigating that world of this is our new virtual reality, I guess, that we're navigating that with panelists. And that is, by moving forward, we are in no way negating the severity of what is happening in the moment. But if we miss these windows to have these panels and the spring panels and summer panels that will come up, then everything ultimately gets pushed back. And so any funding we do have starting October may not get out the door until this time next year, and that's what we don't want to happen. At the same time, we are giving a lot of thought to are there any things that we should change? Should we make changes to some of the project-based grants? And I'm a little bit reticent because, and I'll speak from the perspective about the arts education grant we have. I'm actually excited to see, what comes in the door. How people have sort of built out their view of what arts education can be and how it can be delivered. And so I'm excited to see what might come in with those applications in the spring. You guys, you're probably aware of this, Lissa, but the collaborative did get a shout out from the state arts agencies that the new database, the online database, was shared with all of the arts education managers across the country. And they are responding to it really positively. So
great.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
The one thing I shared this morning with Lissa and Tracey, and as folks have been reaching out to me, because everybody seems to be moving to this virtual platform. And you alluded to it or mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, and I'm really interested in hearing from Mary about this and from others. But how we can put stuff up on online, but how does the arts community know that young people and their teachers are engaging in the material or with the material, and how do we know that there is impact? I can assume there's some way of tracking student impact if they're, they've logged on to attend, classes and so on, and that those sort of touch points are more ongoing for a classroom teacher. But with, oftentimes the one-off opportunities that we have as arts organizations to engage these young people, I'm just really interested in what folks are doing to capture not only, as I said, who is participating, but what engagement and impact look like.
David, are you asking right now for that
It's a question I'm just throwing out there. Lissa, I would ask her to curate that experience with Tracey, but and maybe I'm interested in, as I said, I'm interested in what everyone has to say, but sort of particularly interested in how the school system is addressing it and ensuring that young people are participating and so on.
No. So before Mary, we would love to hear some of your thoughts around this too, because I know you're thinking of this as well. The collaborative, our game plan was to do a rapid response, knowing that not that we were just throwing things up online, that we would be looking at content that was of high quality that our members have already done, or converting that into something that could be in the digital or downloadable space. But high quality will continue to be something that's so important to our work. And the next step is to look at assessment of this and making sure there's linkages. But now assessment becomes much more complicated than just Google Analytics and what we know we can track, but what it really has to truly be a partnership with the frontline educators, the parents, and the cultural organizations, and using the collaborative portal. Tré, maybe before Mary jumps in, let's tell you what we know through the resource database to date, what is happening. Do you want to just share real quick? Yeah, I think that'd be helpful for people.
I can. Would you like me to share my screen?
Yeah.
And that way I can show you kind of on our back end. So we set up a Google hold on. It says, Tracey, you might have to go in and enable screen sharing again. It says it's disabled.
Okay, hold on one second.
But I'll just, while she's preparing to do that, I'll just give you a quick rundown. So we set up our Google Analytics page right before we launched. And so right before we sent out our, the link to all of our, one second. We set up this account linked directly to our database to kind of track its usage. And it's been really great. And so we've had over 1,800 sessions. And so that's the amount of people who have gone on to our database since it's launched. It shows you how many people are using it, at the moment. And so even, this morning we've had several people go onto the database. One of the really cool things or features is it shows you how people are getting to it. And so whether that's through a direct link. And so for us, that would be when we send out our messaging to our members and to our education community, if they're clicking on the email directly, whether they're getting on it through social media or referral. And a referral is really interesting because that would mean that someone has taken our link and sent it out to their own network as well. And so it'll show you a map of where, it's really exciting actually. I'll see if I can make this a little bigger to show you, that the database is really being used now in many cases all over the world. And so this is the map of where the database is being used. And so all the colored countries are countries where our database has been opened and used. And so the top two, which I think is, makes sense, is the United States, and the United Kingdom, surprisingly, has had a good amount of usage, as well as Canada for the database, which is really cool. The page that we, though, or that David might be more of interest to you at the commission, that we're working still to figure out how we can use it for specific members, are these page reports. So in the page reports, that'll show us what pages are people going to the most. And so for us, we can see on our analytics page that obviously, most people when they're going to our website are going to go to the home page first. That's, the link that we send out to people directs them to the home page. And then from there, we can see where they're going after the home page. And this is actually really exciting because we've had about it'll show you we've had 5,181 page views total. And so even though we've only had 1,000 or maybe a little over 1,000 users at this point, people, when they're going onto the database, they're going to more than one page, which is good. But so it'll show you that, after the home page, they're then going, visual arts has the next highest amount of screen time, and then humanities, and then performing arts after that. The part where it's going to get confusing for us is that, so if you were to go to the database, for example, the Google Analytics is only able to track pages. And so for us, like this home page is a page, or if you were to go to Humanities High School, this right here is a page. And so Google Analytics is able to trace, for right now, from what we know of it, and again, we're researching if there's any way we can learn more, but we're able to see how many people are going to, this page specifically, so the high school humanities page. What we're unable to know is if we were to go to, let's see, if someone was interested in the National Building Museum, how many times are they clicking on this specific link of Evicted Teaching Guide or Past, Present, and Future St. Elizabeth's Teaching Guide? That's something that we are at the moment unable to trace because we're not able to see exactly, where, how many people are going or exiting. We do know where people are exiting from. And so if we go to exit pages, we're able to see that this many people, when people come to our page, they're leaving from the home page, or they're leaving from visual arts early childhood and going somewhere else, but we don't necessarily know where they're going. In order to know that, we'd have to see where people are, someone else would have to have a Google Analytics page to be able to say they're coming to us from, the DC Collaborative's distance learning database. Mm-hmm. There is a way, though, to see kind of where people are sending our information. It was really exciting. Earlier today, we were able to see, let's see here, I don't remember what it said, audiences. But we were able to track and see where people were coming to us from, or where people were sending the resource to. I mean, clicking on it from, it might have been source, referrals. Here we go. So this is really cool. So it'll show us, like, people are coming from Facebook or our website directly, or, NWA has sent it out. And so people are going from, some resource that they've sent out. A charter school, Eagle Academy Public Charter School, has sent it out. We're able to see that people are clicking to our database from there. And so for any of our members, so if a member were to set up a Google Analytics page for their distance learning database, or whatever their distance learning resources are, they would be able to track and see, well, how many people are coming to our website from the DC Collaborative's distance learning database. But we can't see where our users are going to. We know where they're leaving from, but we don't know where they're being directed to, because, like I mentioned, on the way that our database is set up, the only way to be able to track that is if we were to set up a separate page for every resource that we have within the database. But then that would make the database a little less organized, because we would have, over 100 pages then on our database instead of these kind of landing pages. Does that make sense? I don't know. Okay, cool. So I'll start. I don't know if anyone has any questions just on how, Google Analytics works, but there is a lot of really great information that you can get from here. And it'll send you active reports. Like, you can see how many people are using it each day. Again, like where they're coming from, what devices they're using, if they're using it on a mobile device or if they're using it on a desktop. So we're able to see that majority of our users are using it on a desktop. You can also see, the demographics of the groups that are using your website. And so this right here may be a little less accurate because it's dependent on how much information our users are sharing. So like it will tell you like this is for 34.15% of our total users. This is what their demographics are, who's using what, whether it's female or male, and what the age groups are. But even here, if it could be younger age groups or people under the age of 18 using the devices of people who are in these age groups or even these age groups. But it really depends on who, again, is the owner of the device, not necessarily who the active user is at that moment, if that makes sense.
Thanks for walking us through this, Tré. We were really pleased to see this information, knowing that we want to capture even more. So we're asking Anthony Satari, our assessment data consultant, to help us dig a little deeper. But this is where this type of data collection and looking to assessment, the new iteration of assessment and what that means moving forward, it really has to be a three-way partnership between the aggregated system of what the collaborative is providing to the providers' content landing place, and then the educators themselves, and in the case of DCPS through the central office would be really helpful. It was really cool because we could track, we had launched a social media announcement about the database over the weekend through Facebook. So some of you, if you like the page or if you have friends that like the page, well, first of all of you should be liking our page. You should all be liking our page. Please like DC Collaborative and share. But we were starting to see a lot of social media launches. So folks coming into the portal through social media, and that was right when we started advertising on Facebook. So, and we were getting some bumps over the weekend, which was a nice surprise too. But what I also really liked about this that we can already glean from this data is that we don't know specifically the program area, where they're going, but we know the program area and we know the age grade band. So it looks like it's really strong on visual arts for early childhood learning in elementary school. And that's no surprise, right? So to start. But this is where we can also think about how do we market things differently? Who should we be reaching out to? What are the true curricular connections to content? How can we reinforce that for educators? These are all things that we can do as a community of practice to help right now in this time during this school year. And then in our new iteration of this kind of hybrid virtual distance learning and direct experiential learning scenario as we move forward into next year. So anyone have any questions for Tré? It was really illuminating for us to see that, see the analytics this morning. We felt pretty good about it to start. It's a good start. David, what did you think?
I think it's great. I guess, I'm just really interested in hearing, how is the end user, how are individual students engaging with the material? Are they engaging? And if so, as I said, what impact? It's a piece that, I think I had shared that there was one theater company came to me and, we're allowing folks to pivot from what it was they had originally planned to do for the field trip initiative. And so they came and they asked about, if they were to create a pretty good quality, recording of the performance that could then be sort of in the can and be used at a later date when some sense of normalcy returns and children go back to school, that, could they then send a teaching artist in and have the students view the piece, and then have the teaching artist unpack the content. And so that one shows that, well, yes, the students engaged with the piece, even though it may have originally been designed as a live performance. But then there was also somebody there to help them unpack and synthesize, their understanding of the piece. So that worked for me. But I am getting folks saying, oh, we're doing this and we're putting it online and we're sending materials to the teachers, but I'm not getting a sense of, how will the material get to the students? How will we know the students are, watching it, listening to it, whatever, and then, what, as I said, what impact it will have. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that that's what we get to work on as a community together. Again, I appreciate everyone in our community pitching in and making this resource happen as quickly as we did, just as we appreciate what everyone is doing, all of the teachers, everyone at DCPS, and getting distance learning up for students as well. And I think this is just our new world and what we need to work on again. We need to work on it as a community. We have this great opportunity to truly collaborate from at the ground level on this work now. And we can take this crisis and turn it into something that one, endures, and also does show impact and does make all of those connections. If we think about it early in our planning, I think it'll all the better. So maybe this is a good segue into having Mary jump in just for some feedback on this. And then of course, we can continue the conversation. I'd love to hear from everyone on the Zoom chat too.
Certainly. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. I'd like to especially thank the collaborative for this wonderful database and these town halls. The town halls have even inspired us, especially the one last week where we decided to throw town halls for our teachers as well. And it's going to become a weekly thing there with them. And it was a wonderful point for us to be able to, have all of the teachers together and really hear feedback and then decide how we want to move forward with those town halls. Everybody wants to have their individual, of course, so that it's very succinct into exactly what they want. So we're working through how we can make that happen, but it was really wonderful. So thank you again, Collaborative, for all that you're doing. So how we are assessing material and impact. There are a couple of ways that we're looking at that. So there's obviously the virtual response where teachers get that immediate feedback, and similar to how you're recording this meeting, the teachers are recording theirs and they're sending us the video, which is just really proving to be brilliant, and we can really see how they're interacting with the students. And it's been wonderful too, because then we can share that with other teachers to be able to show them what is possible and how you can involve the students. And so that's been really great to be able to see the impact. Grading, I'm sure you all saw, it was put out by the Chancellor what the grading for this term looks like. So that is a bit of a frustrating point for us in that everything that's happening during this distance learning up until April 24th is considered sort of extra credit or fill in for any missing assessments. So the end of term 3 for our students is technically not graded. So it is just for the helping to get kids up to speed or extra credit. And then if we're still out of school after that point, then term 4 will be a fully graded time. So, we have students involved, but there's also a big student outcry on that lack of grading for term 3 second half, because they are doing the work and they want to be involved in the work, and they want the work to count and not just be extra credit. So that shows the drive that they want to do it, which is great. As a DCPS parent myself, I'm really relying on all of our curriculum and our outside resources to help my kids as well. It's creating structure and routine, and especially when it comes to music and the arts and movement, that has been really key to my sanity and my children's sanity. So I know that a lot of the families feel that way as well from what I've heard. From the teacher town hall, I would say that the response from teachers on student engagement and the impact of what has been created, I would probably say, and this is very anecdotal because we didn't really survey the teachers, but anecdotal based on what they put into the chats, was about half and half, between some saying that they've reached out to students and had no response, and then the other half that their whole class is completely involved. They have 100% students. And that doesn't necessarily fall within the ability to have virtual accessibility realm, because we do have teachers that are finding creative ways to ensure that their kids are picking up the packets, and they're having the phone calls. They're finding ways to involve their students. So it isn't necessarily along the economic line that we're seeing that difference. So that's a positive in that. What we're not seeing yet is the full spectrum, because it has only been 1 week of teaching technically so far, because the first week was spring break. So.
Mary, quick question.
Mary.
Sorry, go ahead, who was speaking.
Well, this is David. Sorry, no, Trey, no, you go ahead with your question. I can follow up.
Just so I have been able to speak with some DCPS students that I work with through another organization. And I know there's a lot of concern on their end about just workload on the front end, and feeling like they're now expected to almost do more work, or given more work at home than they normally would be receiving in the school. Is there any, and how that, is taking a toll on them, just in terms of like, exhaustion and mental health? What is DCPS doing as a school district to help, make sure that students are not burnt out? Or is there any mental health support systems in place for them during this time from the district?
Sure. So we had very set directive, because this week we're entering into creating weeks 4 and 5 of curriculum, because when we first started, we created weeks 1 through 3. So kids are just now entering into week 2. Sorry, that's a lot of throwing out of weeks. But so in our direction with creating weeks 4 and 5, we were told, or instructed, I guess you could say, to make it high impact, lower time. And a lot of it is that shock of the flipped classroom. So whenever you have a flipped classroom, it really means that the students are doing a lot of the work that the teacher would have facilitated or given to the students. So students are having to research if they just want to know about a certain topic, versus having it just be told to them, or have some fun exercise in class to review that information. So it does come off as a lot more information. So we're looking at how we can make the curriculum higher impact in that mindset. As far as, and also shortening the lessons too for that, without dumbing them down. And then as far as the mental health, we do have all 26 of our school psychologists ready to still help our students as they were before. But obviously with 50,000 students and 26 psychologists, that's hard, right? And so our team, as a focus, we are working with a drama therapist and an art therapist who's already on our team, the art therapist, but we've contacted a drama therapist, and they are helping us to look at what can we do with our curriculum. We obviously can't really make it true drama therapy or art therapy, because a parent or a teacher isn't there to facilitate whatever comes out of the information. But we can look at what we're calling protocols or expressive arts to help students work through some of the issues of what they're going through. And so on the art and music side, since we are a little constrained by what our kids can do, since they don't have supplies at home, we can sort of move our curriculum a little more to that true SEL side of what's being created, versus just looking at technique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Mary. I think it's really important. Yeah. We want to dedicate one of our future Zoom chats to address therapy and art therapy. And I think we had talked to Lindsay, who's your resident art therapist, Lindsay Vance, about that, because it is so important. It's important for the kiddos, but important for all of us too, as the educator providers. Joanna, can you just share what you brought up in the chat? Because this is something that's very important for us to acknowledge too. And also it was echoed by Sarah. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And there's some very basic needs that are still needing to get actualized, as Mary referenced as well. But Joanna, if you want to share from the charter school side. what you're seeing?
Sure. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't want to represent the charter school. I can only represent Capital City, but I hear what you're saying. We're in a little bit of a different place because we have a different spring break than you. This is actually our 3rd week of distance learning. We spent the first 2 weeks making sure, because we thought it was going to be short, giving, authentic, engaging curriculum, but purposefully not introducing new content. And I'm talking about the whole school. I sit in on meetings. So not just our arts team, but also our content teachers and principals as well. Getting devices for our students has been enormous. That's taken us a couple of weeks. Our IT team has been going to school every day. We've had like 180 families, and that's just in our middle and high school, stopping in to get, and first there was is it going to be a Chromebook? Is it going to be a tablet? Is it going to be a MacBook? So there was that whole struggle. And then there was they wanted to make sure middle and high school families had the devices, and a lot of them need hotspots, everything like that. We have a lot of families who do not. After doing a survey at the beginning of the year, we kind of knew which families would need devices. So that took a really long time. And now that it looks like it's gonna be longer, our lower school students are coming in. I came in at the end of the meeting. I guess there's something with DCPS or the charter school board about getting tablets to students in schools, which I think is phenomenal. I don't know that much about it. It was interesting hearing, talking about grading, because we, of course, we want to grade, but we don't want to ding students who are not doing as well as they can because they're not set up yet. So we're kind of trying to figure out grading. We haven't done that yet. Of course, we have real concern, especially about our AP classes. The other thing we're really struggling with is communicating with each other. If the drama teacher gives an hour of work and then the math teacher gives an hour of work and the science teacher, all of a sudden the parents are like, wait a minute, I have 9 hours of work. So we're kind of struggling with that. We have a lot of parents who are saying, stop giving us so much, stop communicating. We're doing touch points, but if the music teacher calls a student and the math teacher and the crew leader, a lot of parents are saying they're feeling overwhelmed. But then we're also getting parents who are saying, why are you only sending us 2 lessons a week? Why aren't you sending us 2 lessons a day in every single domain? So we're just figuring it all out. But we've got teachers who are doing a great job with Google Hangouts, leading live classes, using Zoom, just kind of doing everything they can. Also checking in, we're really big into making sure, thinking how students are. So texting and emailing students and having G-chats with students. And so we're in our 3rd week. We're just figuring it out. But our main thing is just equitable access and making sure we are, trying to close that opportunity divide. So I don't know, Lissa, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I think so. What does everyone think? Yeah, for sure. Thank you for sharing that. Because, I think as the, yes, Fareed just said yes. And even Fareed's earlier chat comment to Mary, let us know what we can do to help. As we're figuring out what our respective cultural organizations are able to do currently and pivoting, as David said, and thinking about what our future looks like, even into next fiscal or school year, we all want to be there and to be as helpful as possible as we can be right now. Knowing that we do want to see impact and direct connectivity to the offerings that we can provide to the teachers and to the students and families, the caretakers, the parents, but know that will take some time for us to figure out as everyone is trying to figure this out. But this is going to be our new norm, even as we return to a normal school year. All indications are we're going to need to look at virtual digital connectivity and offerings as we move forward. It's going to be more important than ever that we do this in a hybrid way.
Hey, Lissa, it's Jeanette. Can I just say one quick thing? Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure. Oh, David. Yes, I'm so sorry.
Go ahead. You're fine.
And I was just going to say, even as it relates, this is Jeanette. I was just going to say, even as it relates to the work that we do with collective impact, I would mention that first, it's the deployment and getting to the general equity. What are our systems and processes that in this body of work, if you look at a lot of the things that people have been doing, or even great programs like what's happened with Chicago and Ingenuity or Big Thought. The first piece was, how are we making sure that we have assets and resources that are even getting to people? There's a bit of this that's now practice-based evidence versus evidence-based practice. The direction is going to be a little bit different. Not to say that we aren't going to worry about quality, but I would say at the beginning of the process, we have to give ourselves the opportunities to document, to be mindful of what are the systems that we're discovering in the process that students don't have access to, or what are the systems that we need to put in place for children who do have parents at home that are able to provide support. What are the additional investments that we need to make for students that do not have those elements in place, and if they're working independently. So I would just say, kind of, and even in the collective impact movement, or even the Center has a long history with Arts Edge of developing and deploying digital resources. First, it was kind of looking at what are people accessing, how are they accessing it, and then starting to get more feedback about how they're actually using it, and being able to then assess what the effectiveness is. So as you're saying, it's a long game, and we're talking about shifting something that we had to do under duress very quickly. But we might want to be a little forgiving of ourselves on being able to measure full impact just yet, especially as it relates to quality standards. That's all I'll say.
Amen. Thank you so much, Jeanette. Jazz hands to you, because that's the truth. And I think we should really be proud of what we've already done as a community, but not leave it at that. We know this was just what we had to take care of, and we continue to need to support to start. There is still much more that we can work on together. And this is really what we believe, is truly the role of the collaborative in supporting our community of practice, and through the Any Given Child collective impact lens is so important. We have that diversity, equity, and inclusion promise document, that living, breathing statement. Boy, now more than ever, we really have to be mindful of that in the work that we do, but also give ourselves some breathing space, knowing that we are responding the best way we can to start. But this is where the collaborative could use help from our entire community of stakeholders. If you or anyone from your respective organizations have great direct contact with some of the media providers, other content providers, developers, from whether it's Microsoft or Comcast or others, this is where we should be having a collaborative conversation as a community. I'm looking to pull out some of my former media reform fellows and colleagues from my previous life, but we, as the collaborative, need to be at that intersection to make sure, and this is something we can do in service of you all as the education providers. But if you already have some direct connectivity, please pass it along to us, and this can be part of the collective impact work that we do together to create and build more equity around all of the new work that we're doing together. David?
Lissa, may I ask a question? Yeah. So is there anyone who's currently online that has cracked the nut, as it were? So have they developed like digital content, and they have a relationship with a school or with several schools or teachers, and the teacher has agreed to, embed the content, in his or her virtual classroom and help assessment? As I said, my concern is just there's a lot of stuff being created, and I don't know, one, how it's being pushed out into the world. Or is it living on people's websites, or again, it's as I said, the example I gave earlier was a much more concrete example. And even if, at a later date, students are still off school, and so this piece that was originally designed to be a live performance is now recorded. Is there, does the arts organization have a commitment, from the teacher to screen it, or to share it with her students, and then for there to be, a Zoom gathering of the teaching artist and the students to unpack it? I'm just really interested in, I haven't come across anyone who said, oh, I have, a relationship with these 3 teachers, and they're embedding it in their virtual lessons, and they're, all of their students are participating in it. So I'm just curious. So it's probably a question for everybody in the room, and also Mary. So.
David, I think Sunny has a response. We're just trying to help her unmute. Hold on a sec. No one can mute Sunny except for Zoom.
Sure.
Uh-oh.
Okay, I figured it out. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Forgive me. I'm always nervous about technology. I'm so technology challenged, but thank you, Tracey, for helping me. So this is not FTE, but we have an early learning program relationship with a few schools, and the KIP Academy, we go there to 3 of their schools and provide a wonderful program. And what we've worked out is that they have a portal that we'll upload our content to. Our teaching artist, Heidi Martin, does the same class that she would do when she goes into the classroom. She's doing it right at home. And then she uploads it to, they have an academic officer. So once they approve it, then we will upload it to their portal. But there is a process just to make sure that we're following curriculum, that we're doing what we're supposed to do on our end. So there is an approval process, and it seems to be working. We just have a great relationship with them. So they're giving us feedback if there's something that we need to tweak. And then we provide not only the video, but some handouts as well, or something that they can send to the students.
Great, thanks.
For that process for DCPS, so we have our own curriculum built in, and we are writing all of our weeks based on that so far. As I said, we're going to tweak some of it, knowing sort of time constraints and looking more at the social emotional needs of our students going forward. But we're definitely welcoming in any supports for if you're creating content and it relates to what we have, or if we just simply approve it, we will add it to a digital resources page that we are offering to all of our parents and teachers, that it's linked to the curriculum. So if what you're doing matches up with our improvisation unit, then I can link it all directly in there, and that way it's automatically set up. We also have several collaboration boards for our teachers based on music, performing arts, and visual arts, so we can always add everything there too. So if you have anything that you want to share, please definitely either send it by email or put it on the database for the collaborative, and I am reviewing all of those to add in to our curriculum. And then beyond that, we are in the process, as many of you have probably seen today in the news, we have the new Fox 5 TV station that is going to do different grade bands every day. And we're still kind of exploring. It's one of those things, the cart came before the horse with this one, because we got the channel and none of us are ready for videos yet. So we are in the process of hiring teachers and teaching artists to do some of these videos for us. But we're having our conference call on how to even do that today at 5 o'clock. So that's one of those things that we're exploring right now and figuring out as we go.
Yeah, some of our partners for sure can help with that and buddying up. I think that would be terrific. Also, maybe it's time to look at Lance and our friends over that do some media work already. They probably could be a great resource too. But that's pretty exciting, and I think it's important for everyone to hear. Yes, Mary and her team are looking at all of the materials that we are putting into the current portal. We are looking at pushing out social media featuring different content as we move forward too. So. But we want to make sure there are curricular connections. And Tracey, if you want to just talk a little bit about, we are planning to resurrect the DC Collaborative Curricular Connection conversations. They're just going to be virtual. So that will help reinforce the work that we're doing, and that there are direct connections.
Yeah, so we're hoping to host our Connecting to Curriculum workshops. Usually they occur in the spring. We're also hoping to have a teaching artist speed dating workshop as well, except there's a feature in Zoom where you can go into different different breakout rooms. So we're still kind of working out the technology, and we'll be in touch soon. And we're also continuing to think how to best communicate with you guys, and how to segment our list to make sure that you're getting the most relevant content. So if you saw from the newsletter last Friday, every Monday, David and Mary will join us. On Tuesdays, we'll have an open forum. Tomorrow, Jeff Poulin from Creative Generation will talk about the Keep Making Art campaign on our Zoom chat. We'll also give our regular updates in the beginning. Wednesdays, anyone can join, but it's geared towards teaching artists and practitioners to kind of event and share about updates to their practice and any adaptations they've been making to their practice for distance learning. Thursdays, we're calling them Community of Practice Days. We'll either hear from school or community-based educators about how they're developing distance learning materials, or we'll hear from out-of-school time folks about how they're prepping for summer camps, or how they're personally doing distance learning. And I'll be in touch about this Thursday soon. And then Fridays, will be all about equity and access, and because the equity piece has come up on every single call. And then we also have listservs for you guys. I'll share the forum with you. If you want to talk beyond the Zoom call and collaborate, there will be a community partnerships listserv, a listserv for teaching artists and practitioners, and then again, the community of practice one for program development or out of school time. If you're the type of person that likes the daily reminders we send out before these Zoom chats, we'll start to move to just using the listserv to send that out, because I know your email boxes are probably pretty full these days. And then we'll have a DC Collaborative daily Zoom chat digest that goes out on Fridays, kind of summarizing the week's news. So I'll go ahead and put that in the chat for everybody, so you can stay connected with us. You can go ahead and fill out that form. And again, we'll be contacting the DC curriculum staff. Trey and I will be contacting the DC curriculum staff to start up those connecting to curriculum workshops. I'm sure there's a lot of uncertainty now with the DC curriculum going forward, but I think it's still valuable for our members and friends to hear what is most relevant for them to cover in their programming going forward. So yeah, I think that's, Lissa, am I missing anything? I think that's
no, that covered it. And again, we want to be responsive to everyone's needs. We have set these structures up. We're really fortunate that we were already wired to do this and able to pivot. So we need to hear from you all to make sure that we're pivoting the right way, or if we need to pivot more in one direction versus another, and be as supportive as possible. Like, I think, Mary, what's going to happen with the new programming is super exciting, and whatever we can do to help be supportive of that would be great. It would be great to see some of the cultural institutions featured in that programming, so that there is that reinforcement too. It'll be a really nice way for the community to be part of the education on TV. But again, whatever the collaborative can do to be supportive in convening these types of conversations, helping matchmake and make those connections, helping you figure out how to pivot. This is something we know how to do, and we are happy to take the time to do that. And we hope that the resources we've set up sound good, but if there's more types of content you all want to see, or more things you want us to focus on, let us know.
Sylvia.
Okay. Unmute. You're muted, Sylvia. There you go. Oh, we still can't hear you. No, that's weird. No. Type, come back. Okay, figure it out and come back. Anyone else want to jump in? Any thoughts? Anyone have some great ideas to share with Mary? Who wants to share out their biggest challenge right now? Maybe you've got all of these great arts educators right here. We can all help.
So this is Sunny, and I'm going to talk to Tracey in a little bit, but I can tell you that our biggest issue right now around FTE is licensing. We have some A-list artists that are working with us on this process, a program that had at the very beginning, before we went into this very challenging time, we're going to lend their time in a very fraction of what they would normally be paid to help the greater good, around public education. But now are a little bit with a little bit of trepidation, are walking through this virtual process with us, but they want to have their content to be private. So I'm having a conversation with Tracey after this call to figure out how the DC Arts Collaborative can help us just distribute the content to the schools that signed up, but how we do it in a way that's a bit private given the licensing issues that we have.
Yeah, that is indeed a challenge. Yeah, and I'm happy to join in on that conversation too. But as Brian is sharing too, copyright is a huge concern with streaming services as well, compensating artists, contracts. It's tricky, right, Brian? Is there anything else you want to add to that? Just, yeah, hands up. But what can we do, even using it for the sake of education? It still is an issue and a challenge, and very real dollars are needed for this too. Copyright, I'd be happy to get some of my copyright lawyer friends engaged. Their focus is mostly in music, but if anyone is interested in that, I'm happy to make some introductions and set up some conversations. Maybe one of my former colleagues might be willing to do a phone a friend session with you if you just want some feedback. But I know the copyright issue is so important.
Lissa, I got a question for Mary. It's Kent.
Mm-hmm.
Mary, hi, Mary. Have you been you've been in touch with the Modern Classrooms Project, Kareem Farah?
No.
Yeah, he's a teacher. He was at Eastern High School for a while, and now he started the Modern Classrooms Project. So it's kind of like blended learning, but actually, really good blended learning. And he teaches teachers to do videos, and sometimes just 2 or 3 minute videos. And he's here in DC. If you need the connection, I can send it to you. He has these kind of year-long training sessions and stuff like that with teachers. But I think there's something he could do short-term basis with teachers, and probably do a number of seminars so they can do this for the teaching channel, for their online. But the other question I have, at least their question is, I know, like focusing on Ward 7 and 8, a number of the schools where we have school partnerships, so in the Washington Lawyers Committee, you got 50%, maybe 75% of the kids do not have online access or don't have the right devices. Is there a plan to, they've released the computers to high schoolers. Is there any plan to release them to middle schoolers, elementary schools? We're trying to get some other industry folks to, add in devices so that they can distribute them. But do you know what's happening on that front?
I don't have an update. I know it's in the plan to get it to them. They're trying to find best solutions for a variety of things, because even everything that we give out at the schools, like the packets even, there's the concern of any transmission of germs. I'm working right now on trying to get art supplies and instruments to students, and that is a big concern, is if I even have it mailed to them, what if someone gets sick just because of something that we mailed, and how horrible that would be. So trying to work through just some of those issues. I have actually a check-in at 1 o'clock with the woman who's in charge of all of that. So I'll have better answers later today, and I'm happy to share. But I know that they are working on that plan.
Okay, good, thanks. One other question, the hard copy packets, those include arts and music instruction.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
A lot of people are missing them because they're at the very end of a 118-page packet.
Right.
But they are there.
Okay.
That's the thing. If any of us have, as we do, contacts with teachers, but also with with the parents and caretakers and students, we should be sending some sort of PSA out there, like, open your packets from bottom up, you know, so people, the good stuff's at the end, you know, all of it's good, of course, but I think it's important for them to know that, especially if you're looking at 118 pages, that's really daunting.
Mm-hmm.
And also 118 pages of, or physical material, as you said, that, you know, now there are health concerns around that too, and what that means. Because I know I saw a teacher from Tacoma Park was, someone had forwarded on one of the DC groups just yesterday that she is looking for donations of art supplies for her kiddos. But if we all want to support, like my first impulse was, of course, let me get some materials to her, let me get her a check or something. But if we're all starting to pull together resources in this grassroots way, there are some potential health concerns if indeed that is something that is needed to clear through, you know, like this part. Who is your contact, Mary? What office is overseeing this at DCPS?
It's the Ed Tech program.
So, you know, that's yet another thing, another barrier we have to figure out. What does that mean, even if you have a community that can provide materials, even in a grassroots way? You know, we're hearing a lot of stories of teachers that are driving through their kiddos' neighborhoods and dropping off things. I mean, there's just so much that's happening in many different ways. But we want to make sure that as the collaborative and as members, we're going through all of the right portals and procedures.
Lissa, I will say, I feel like so many schools, including ours, are dropping off and families are coming by getting food. Yeah. So I feel like kind of figuring out what best practices for that is, and maybe then kind of mimicking those for delivering or sending out. Obviously paper is a problem, but supplies and stuff, we've been thinking about that too. But I feel like maybe best practices for food delivery or food distribution might help our community.
That's an even bigger issue, isn't it? You know, it's one thing to get art supplies, but the food as well. So yeah, and making sure that there's safety procedures.
I have a question.
Tom?
Yeah, I just joined late because when I came into the meeting, it had been hacked by a bunch of kids. What happened with that? You were able to have a meeting?
Yes. So as we shared, that was really horrendous and disgusting and horrible. And we're all cringy just thinking about it. I'm glad my eyeballs didn't see it. I'm sorry for those that did see it, because I had joined the meeting late, but I immediately got text messages like, what the hell? This is our new world order. We have to come up with more secure platforms. Zoom is not a secure platform, and we have to figure this out moving forward.
Okay.
So, and when we start to think about is teaching artists and educators doing any sort of live content, really needs to go through the portal of the schools. It needs to, you know, there needs protection and layers. You know, we want, you know, everyone the first few weeks, from Debbie Allen to others, have been right in there wanting to get content out and do things to support the community. But now if we're looking at the platforms that we are relying upon so greatly in our personal and professional time, like Zoom, I'm using Zoom personally too for so many things with my family. We have to find more secure systems, and we really have to rely upon our educators to help guide us there, because this is where the issue of privacy and direct contact with students and families is a concern. So just to recap what happened, some spam came through from a porn site, I believe, and someone else indicating they were looking for a KKK meeting, just hacking in and just really disgusting stuff. This is actually the first time I've seen that on any of the Zoom chats that we've done, even any of my personal Zoom chats that I've participated in. Has anyone else seen this type of stuff? No.
I wrote to my boss today and she said, oh, I was just on a meeting and it happened on only Zoom.
It's only Zoom. Okay. Well, clearly Zoom's going to get a lot of messages right now, so they're going to be figuring this out too, but it's something we have to be cognizant of when we're working with families and kiddos.
Yeah. We also had a problem where we were doing some Zoom lessons, and apparently my middle school music teacher said if the person who called the meeting doesn't sign off last, if they sign off, kids can stay on and just keep talking on school time and everything. So that's something we are trying to figure out with Zoom as well.
Oh,
It's
sure.
been a problem.
Yeah. That's
Lissa,
right.
if the person who hosts the meeting goes into into the share settings, you can say that the only person who can share their screen is the host.
Ah.
So people can still,
there are ways to
still show up, but they can't share anything.
Right. That's true. We also know that you can mute as administrator too. So there are some layers. We're all learning. And our intent is not to have open, unsecure spaces, even for our own meetings as adults, right? So we'll get it right. But this is why I know we're at the collaborative hesitant to produce any content, have any live events that would be engaging families and students right now. We were thinking about, should we host things for our teaching artist friends? Should we help market these opportunities? We have to be very careful about how we do this and defer to our colleagues in the schools, whether it's through Mary, through DCPS Central, or looking through the Charter School Board. If we want to provide content, we have to make sure, content in this form, we have to make sure that it's in a secure way. Privacy matters so much more now than ever, doesn't it? But at least for us and saving our eyeballs, the collaborative has learned its lesson. We will make sure that that was just an honest error on our part. Rookie mistake. We didn't know that we could actually mute the screen share. So I know we're all cringing. Oh God, poor Tracey. She's like, ah. Again, I'm so sorry. DCPS is using Microsoft Teams for meetings. Okay, that might be a more secure portal too. We're gonna investigate this, but I also think that Zoom is probably looking at finding ways to protect that as well.
Did you have a normal meeting today? Did David Markey show up?
Yeah, David was on. He might still be on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Yeah. So, was there a question, Tom, you had for David?
No, not yet.
Okay. So, April 17th is a deadline I know that's coming up for commission. That's for interim reports. And David, is that for all of the current fiscal year grants?
That is correct. Anyone who has to submit an interim report. We have any of the general operating support reports that we've received. We have already approved them, and we have solicited second invoices. So, any of you who are organizations in receipt of general operating support grants, the sooner you get your reports in, the sooner we can push money out the door to you. So,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, and noted for us, that's on my that's on my tickler list right now for sure. It's a priority. Yeah, we've been working on all these things for community to start. So next up.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just, I know cash flow is oftentimes an issue with organizations, and even if you do have a line of credit, we don't want folks dipping into that because nobody should give banks any more money than they need to. So yeah, just the sooner you get we're turning them around really quickly. We have a couple of people dedicated to approving reports, reviewing and approving reports. So yeah, we're turning them around pretty quick.
So the money in theory could get out a little earlier than it normally does if we get it in.
Oh yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny because we usually do give folks about 5 or 6 weeks heads up when we create the reports in the system, but the majority of folks end up submitting on the due date. But yeah, if you get them in, as I said, we'll review them right away and get back to you and ask you to submit an invoice. So
yeah. That's great.
Super.
So for those of you that don't, that are not the development folks of your orgs, please make sure to pass that on, especially if they need any education report materials. It's great for all of us to get those in as soon as possible. Does anyone else have any other questions for David or Mary or for the collaborative? Teak?
Yeah, I just posted a question to Mary that Fox 5 information that you posted. I'm wanting to assume that is unrelated to the DCTV efforts. Are they two separate events, basically?
Right. There's the one that's being run by, I can never remember the acronym, the Office of Film and Entertainment. They're, I believe, doing the DCTV one, and then DCPS is doing the Fox 5. There was talk that it was going to be the same run across all 4 channels to get everyone adjusted. I don't know for sure if that's still being done, though. I'll find out later today and send it out.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for that update, Mary. Just so everyone knows too, we've been in touch with the Office of Cable TV, Film, Media, Entertainment, and hopefully we're trying to figure out more ways that we can get more of our cultural communities, the private sector, all of the cultural institutions supporting DC student learning out there and on their networks as well, especially the knowledge one. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi Lissa, it's Paul Reisler.
Hi, Paul.
How are you doing? Sorry, I missed part of the meeting. We had our cat had to be put down today, but so something.
Sorry.
Forgive me. I was just out doing a little burial service there. But anyway, I just wanted to let you all know what we were doing with Zoom, because I think it's pretty interesting. And we've had to figure out a lot of things, but we're doing songwriting sessions live with the kids on Zoom, just basically continuing what we usually do in the classroom, but over Zoom. And we figured out ways to even record the songs and record the kids and mix it back in. So if anybody needs a little help with it, we've had to figure out a lot of things. And one thing I mentioned to you is I was aware of the Zoom bombing thing. And so we have people sign up for the workshops on Constant Contact. And then so we don't post anywhere the meeting ID. So there's another step.
Right. That's a very, very good point, because in the case of this Zoom chat address, we market this out through social media because we want to reach as many stakeholders as we can. But you are able to create unique Zoom chat addresses. I'm seeing in the commercial for profit sector, folks taking advantage of that for private, like kind of pay to play opportunities. So not broadcasting out your Zoom chat address widely. It helps for sure. That's a good point.
People have to sign up through something. It's just another layer, and they sign up and forget about it by the time you go live. So anyway, we were very concerned about that, because here we are working with kids, and
yes,
it'd be pretty awful if some kid had somebody had done that in the session. But I did want to also mention, if any of you are interested, we can do a session for your school, because in a way we've been doing it so that kids from all kinds of schools can sign up, but I think it's even better if, say a classroom or a half a classroom did it with us at once, because then they have an opportunity to get together as a classroom and do something creative together and write a song. So if anybody would either like to check with me about any help you need for Zoom or ideas, or would be interested in that, I'm Paul at kidpanalley.org.
Super. Thanks, Paul. And let's stay tuned for when we have more conversations around building content and new programs, because I think that would be great for you to serve as a great mentoring resource, especially for some of our teaching artists too.
You all are doing there, Lissa.
Yeah. I see that there was a question from Sarah Pekempner, and just to clarify, David, can you just reiterate the April 17th deadline is for interim reports that include general operating support, but also the field trip grants, right?
That is correct, yes. And everybody should have received an email who's in that cat. Once we set the reports up, we email grantees to let them know when the deadline is. So it's the same deadline. If anyone needs an extension, they should request it in advance of that April 17th or April. Okay, is it April 7th? Whatever the Friday is. But yeah, we understand that folks may need extensions. Yes, April 17th. But yeah, just to let us know before that date. So.
Right. And also for those of you on the line today that this applies to, that are field trip grant recipients and are working with the collaborative, in terms of assessment, we haven't billed anyone for assessment yet, but that doesn't mean we haven't been working on it. We've been working on it all year. We typically get those reports to you by the end of year, but we're doing our best right now to get as much information before the 17th, because we know that pretty much trips, this is it. And we're trying to capture as much of that as possible right now. So there could be something that might be shared in an interim way for David. And either, we'll get them to you, but we can also get them straight to the commission if they come in a little later. But our team is working on that right now. We've shifted our schedule to help support that too. Anyone else have any questions, thoughts, new ideas? Well, thank you again. It's really important for us to stay connected as a community. A lot of great learning comes out of this for us at the collaborative, and how we can continue to serve you all. And in particular, these Monday conversations I think are so valuable, because all of us get to hear from David at the commission and Mary from DCPS, two very, very important and necessary stakeholders in all of our work. The collaborative will continue to provide these daily Zoom chats every weekday at 11. So again, mark your calendars. We'll do our best not to flood your inboxes too much with announcements, as Tracey said, but we also know how important it is for us to remain in close contact right now, as we're trying to continue to pivot our work and service students and teachers, and also take care of ourselves as organizations and as people. So everyone give yourselves like an extra big stretch and hug, virtual hug coming from me to you all. Everyone be well, and we'll talk with you all tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Lissa. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye, David.
David. Bye.